Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. We bring you this video segment every morning to help you catch up with things that are taking place whilst you were perhaps catching up on some all-important rest. Because well, let's face it, you need sleep, I need sleep, the whole world needs sleep. The world of sport is something that doesn't really sleep. There's always something or the other that is going to be going on in the world of sport, and it is impossible to keep a track of every little thing that is happening. Thankfully, that's what we are doing this video segment here for. So let's catch up with straight away something that has been trending on social media all through the night. And I am, of course, talking about the IPL game between LSG and SRH, but more specifically, what happened after the game, not during the game. After the game, some visuals went viral on social media wherein Rahul could be seen receiving an absolute dressing down from LSG's owner Sanjeev Goenka. Now you can have your own opinions as to whether or not that's right, but let's put it this way: you couldn't hear what was being said, but it was an animated conversation, and Sanjeev Goenka did not look happy. And in fact, even Rahul seemed at a loss for words. He was just hearing whatever it is that was being said more often than not really adding much to the conversation. Although calling it a conversation might be doing it a bit of a disservice, because it seemed more like a one-way hammering coming from Goenka himself. Now, as to whether or not this right or wrong, I mean, people will have a lot of opinions on this. Personally, I think this was something that could have been handled behind closed doors. Yes, LSG were undoubtedly humiliated, and it's their second back-to-back huge loss that has pretty much put their playoff hopes to rest, because again, they have a couple of tough fixtures coming up, and whilst their fate is very much in their own hands, momentum definitely is not. However, it's also worth noting that this is the same Sanjeev Goenka who was ruthless enough at one point to sack MS Dhoni as captain in a team that he was only going to ever own for 2 years. Of course, I'm talking about Rising Pune Supergiant. So we know that Goenka is a ruthless character, and this could very well spell the beginning of the end as far as the Rahul in LSG experiment. I mean, you don't know whether he'll be retained as a player or not, because don't forget, next year is going to be a mega auction year in the IPL. But I don't see him continuing on as a captain anymore, because quite frankly, more often than not, KL has been found wanting, and perhaps more crucially, has not been able to lead by example. That's also a big problem when it comes to KL, the skipper, is that he just hasn't been able to lead by example. He talked a big game about playing with more intent, playing with more aggression in the power play, but himself was making 29 ball 33s. And I think the Goenka, exchange, the showdown that took place should have happened behind closed doors. But let's just put it this way: it was definitely coming. And I think at this point, Rahul may as well just ensure that I think he'd be lucky if he gets retained even as a player by LSG. In fact, if you go over what it is he said after the match, and that's what we're going to do now, it appeared that he was shell-shocked, because these are his exact quotes, by the way, and I just picked out a little bit of it. He said that, "I'm lost for words. We watched that kind of batting on TV, but this is unreal batting. Everything seemed to find the middle of the bat. We were 40-50 runs short, but even if we would have got to 40, they could have chased that as well." Now, that's a big statement from KL, where he's saying, look, we were 40-50 runs short, although I'm tempted to put a little bit of the blame for that on him. And he also said that if we'd gotten 240, perhaps they would have chased it. Now, I don't really know if, of course, they could have chased it down, because truth be told, I don't think that they could have actually chased down 240 if it was on the board. I mean, this is, after all, a team in LSG, in SRH, that more often than not absolutely struggles to chase. We know that for a fact. That is one of the main reasons why LSG actually chose to bat in the first place when they won the toss. But as Rahul says, maybe they would have chased down 240 as well. And in fact, speaking of course, the SRH openers, Sachin Tendulkar was full of praise for them on a social media platform called X, formerly known as Twitter. He said that calling this a destructive opening partnership would be an understatement tonight. These boys batted first, they would have scored 300. That's what Sachin said. And I think he's fair. I mean, whether or not you look at, let's say, how it is that LSG played, you can't take anything away from how well it is that, SRH batted. In fact, they batted very, very well. They were clinical, they were dominant, 10 wicket win. And if they had batted first, who knows, we could have perhaps gotten that up ki bar 300 par moment when it comes to IPL 2024. Switching our focus now from the world, actually one more thing which I really have to mention from this particular match before we then talk about something else that's been trending all night, is what it is that Adam Voges, who happens to be part of LSG as a consultant, had to say at the post-match press conference. He's saying that, look, I think we are all in a little bit of awe of what we've just seen. I think sometimes you've just got to tip your hat and say, well played to the opposition. I think we might have been hit or miss, hit 1 or 2 balls in the night and a bit more overs that we bowled at them. That was incredible batting and hitting. We clearly didn't have an answer. Now, again, he's stating the obvious here, Adam Voges, where he says that we didn't quite frankly have an answer to what it is that they were presenting to us. Now, this in itself a massive thing where you're saying you didn't have an answer, but once again, who is culpable for that in this particular case? It would of course be the skipper, it would be Rahul, it would be the coaching staff, and you're talking about, we were talking about before that Sanjay Goenka was having a conversation with KL. Later on he had one with both KL and Justin Langer, so who really knows? Big changes could very well be coming come the end of this particular season for LSG, and given that this is the franchise that has been the most expensive franchise in the history of the IPL, for them to be underachieving like this, I mean, if I were the owner, I too would be very, very mad. That being said, let's switch our focus now to the world of football, and man, did we witness a humdinger of a Champions League semi-final last night between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, and Real Madrid ended up winning it 2-1, but there was a bit of a controversial element which we'll get to. First, talking about the match, Bayern could and should have had its seal. I mean, they only ended up taking a lead in the 65th minute courtesy of Alphonso Davies, but when they took that lead, everyone thought, okay, they can perhaps sit on that, but there was also a section of fans who were thinking, listen, you need another goal, because Real Madrid are the king of Champions League comebacks. That's exactly what happened thanks to Joselu, scored 2 goals towards the end of the game, but Bayern should have had an equalizer, and that brings us to our next controversial moment, the ruled out offside. Thomas Tuchel, the manager, has absolutely slammed the goal that Matthias de Ligt scored, but which was not given because the flag was raised beforehand, so the play was considered dead, the goal didn't count, they couldn't have reviewed it. Replay suggested that, listen, that was in fact perhaps not offside, and if VAR had come in, it would have perhaps been given a goal. This is what Thomas Tuchel had to say. He said, listen, we have to let the action play out until the end. That's the rule, especially since it's so close to the goal and it's so limited. The first error is made by the linesman, the second comes from the referee. In fact, Tuchel would go one further and say that this loss felt very much like a betrayal, and he added that, look, the referee apologized to us, but how does it matter? We've already lost the tie. At this point, him apologizing means precious little. And we'll do a special deep breakdown on this particular video. We'll look at it the way we do other things in sports today. I'll come to you later in the day. I'll only be doing it, and I'll tell you how exactly it is that this was a situation where I actually do kind of agree with Tuchel, because Bayern were very much robbed by one poor bit of judgment, but we'll get into that particular bit of story later on. You'd remember at one point there was a major controversy after the FIFA Women's World Cup where Spain won it, but the former Spanish Football Federation chief, Rubiales, quoted a lot of controversy by unwittingly, or by kissing a lot of the female players on their lips. Jenny Hermoso was one of the more high-profile players who was caught up in that, and it led to a big storm as far as player behavior and exposing the rot of the RFEF. Well, now we know that Rubiales will in fact be standing trial for that particular incident. So it's no longer just a case of inappropriate behavior on the field. It's now reached a point where it is very much a criminal matter to be heard in the court of law, and that's pretty big if you ask me. Switching focus now, a little bit of tennis news. Naomi Osaka, who you remember has been having a bit of a mixed trail as far as her comeback, ended up beating Clara Burel in straight sets in the Italian Open first round, which is of course her first appearance in this particular tournament since 2021. Now, of course, Osaka last year ended up giving, she gave birth to her first child, and her involvement in the sport of tennis had become pretty peripheral due to her taking plenty of breaks to focus on her own mental health. Now, not actually shying away from criticizing anyone. I'm not going to criticize anyone really for taking breaks in that sort of a regard, especially when you're an elite sports person. But maybe, just maybe, now we can see Osaka start building up towards what should be a big comeback. Remember, this is the same Osaka who's a multi-time Grand Slam winner, so there is a talented player there. Hopefully, come the French Open, you get to see what Osaka is really made of. Rafael Nadal also is going to be participating in this particular tournament, but he finds himself in a rather unusual position. He's been riddled with injuries for the past couple of years. But to make things even more worrying, well, he is currently ranked 305 in the world, and every time he seemingly tried to make a comeback from injury, it hasn't worked out. That being said, in Nadal's world, he's okay with it. He wants to, see it how things play out. He believes in his preparation, and he's embraced his role as the underdog. A little bit of Formula One news for you to round things up in this wrap. And Formula One has now been accused of making excuses to deny Andretti and General Motors a new entry. And this accusation comes from no one else but a senior United States politician. Now, it's reached a point where I remember we'd done a few stories on the Andretti bid and why it is that it was rejected. Long story short, the FIA, which is Formula One's governing body, accepted the bid. Formula One, in their own process, chose to veto the bid because they are actually allowed to do that. They said, no, we don't feel like this will add any value to F1, we're rejecting it. Andretti is now taking things to the US Congress, which means that you could potentially have governments involved in what should be an elite motorsport matter. How this plays out, that's something that remains to be seen, but we'll also be doing a special video of this, so stay tuned for that later in the day. For now though, I'm taking your leave, so thank you guys so much for joining us as always on this edition of the Morning Wrap. We appreciate you joining us. If you enjoyed our work, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap that bell, leave us a comment. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sportspick app. And if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well. For now, from my side, it is goodbye.